Back in the book segment tonight, will there be a backlash against peaceful Muslims the world over because of the terror attack in London? Joining us now from Washington is Hussein Ibish, Vice Chair of the Progressive Muslim Union of North America. I want to get your reaction to Friedman's comment. I read this in the talking points from on top. I'll read it again very quickly.
Sure.
And we respect Friedman here. We think Friedman knows a lot about the Muslim world, and he's not like some of the others of the New York Times trying to impose ideology. Friedman says, quote, "The Muslim world has been derelict in condemning the madness of jihadist attacks. When Salman Rushdie wrote a controversial novel involving the Prophet Muhammad, he was sentenced to death by the leader of Iran. To this day, no major Muslim cleric or religious body has ever issued a fatwa condemning Osama bin Laden." That's a pretty powerful paragraph, is it not?
It is, and I'd agree with him to a very large extent in the sense that I think a lot more needs to be done, and particularly need to ask more of religious leadership. It's actually not true that no major organization has ever issued a fatwa against bin Laden. There are a couple, but it's not enough. I think when you survey kind of the religious scene in the Islamic world, in the Middle East and South Asia, a lot of preachers are apolitical. They just stay away from the stuff, they don't touch it. A small group, but very vocal and very damaging, are radical. There are two of the worst are in London. One of them just went on trial the day before the bombing. His name is Abu Hamza Masri. You might find out that the bombing could conceivably be connected to him being put on trial. But the biggest group, and this includes some of the leading voices, are in a squishy middle where they try to have things kind of both ways. A good example is a guy called Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, who's an old Egyptian cleric who is in Qatar and who's on Al Jazeera quite a lot. He has a program there. And, you know, he's against Al-Qaeda, he's against 9/11, he's against these terror attacks in London. But then at the same time, he says it's okay for Palestinians to engage in suicide bombing. And he's against the beheadings and some of the other atrocities in Iraq. But he's generally been sort of pro the resistance, the insurgency. So he tries to have it kind of both ways. And I think what we want to see increasingly from religious leaders in the Islamic world is, and from other leaders and commentators in the Islamic world, is a single standard. You know,
I think they're afraid.
Look, if you attack civilians,
I think they're afraid. I think clerics in Saudi Arabia or Pakistan, if they come out in the mosques on a Friday night and say, "Look, Osama bin Laden is going to hell and he's not representing us," on Saturday morning they'll have a hand grenade in the window.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think they're afraid. I think what has happened is we have a tendency. All of us humans have a tendency to want to have it both ways, to want to be moral,
I know what you're saying, but you got to look at the facts.
Let me give you an example.
I got one more question I want to ask you, and I want to make one more point. Al-Sistani, the big Shia cleric in Iraq, his second-in-command assassinated. Mr. Ibish, I think you got to understand how bad these people are and how frightened a lot of the clerics are. But
well, certainly in Iraq there's no security, but I think it's perfectly true.
There's no security in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia either.
I think there is in Saudi Arabia, and I think there is in Qatar, and I think there is in most countries. The senior clerics are not going to be attacked. I think asking for a single standard is not a problem, but I think also, by the way, our own government should have a single standard. This case in Florida with Luis Posada Carriles, this Cuban terrorist who blew up a plane with 73 people on it, we shouldn't be treating him like a visa overstay. We are. We're treating him like a visa case, and he's not. So a single standard. You attack civilians, you kill civilians, you're a terrorist. That's it.
Absolutely,
and it's unacceptable, and we should not make exceptions for Palestinians, nor Israelis, nor Cubans, nor anybody.
Got to run, Mr. Ibish.
Flat.
Thanks very much. And we will wrap things up in a moment with the most ridiculous item. You'll find this interesting, I promise, and some of your mail.